What's going on everyone, my name is Tom from Dreadlabs and today we're going to create a custom crew neck.
Dreadlabs.
So yeah guys, this is a little bit of a different video that you've been expecting from me. It stays a little bit away from graphic design, but it's something that I wanted to do and plan on Dreadlabs for a while now, and I also wanted to test out some new microphones and new gear. So yeah, I thought let's just do a video. Okay, so I got this old H&M sweater here that I don't really wear anymore, and I stopped buying H&M ages ago. But what I want to do today is give it a painting on the back and attach some patches on the sleeves. So if you want to recreate this at home, what you will need is, well, a crew neck, some fabric markers, some fabric paint, some patches. I got these at a flea market in Berlin a couple of years ago. Maybe some painter's tape, a thread and a needle, and a couple of embroidery hoops. Future Tom here. You'll also need scissors and a couple of pins are optional. So we're kind of going to cheese the design right here. I can kind of draw, but I'm definitely not the best at it, so we're going to make a guide in 3D. In Cinema 4D, I've made a 3D render that I can use as a reference to draw over. I gave the render as much contrast as possible to make the drawing process a little bit easier for myself. I then put the image into Procreate. As you can see, I'm trying to go for like a threshold style illustration. I'm not sure if there's like a name for it. Anyways, I tried to make the lines where the shadows are supposed to be. The idea is to start the shape very thin, then make the middle like a bit thicker, and then the end thin again. I've also made the outer lines a bit thicker so you can separate the skull from the snake a little bit better. So then I put the design into InDesign and I distributed it all over 4 pages and printed it out. And now guys comes the painstaking process of getting the guides on the crew neck. I've cut out every part bit by bit and started outlining it where it's supposed to be on the sweater. It takes a long time, but it will ensure you that the proportions turn out well, even if you're not the best at drawing. I made the outlines with a black fabric marker, but it definitely doesn't fill in the design properly, as you can see here. When you're doing this, make sure that every line that you put on the fabric is in the right place, as it's hard to erase the fabric markers. If you want to be more careful, you can use tailor's chalk. You can wipe that off and it's easier if you make mistakes. Another thing you should make sure of is that you have a piece of cardboard inside the sweater to make sure the ink doesn't bleed onto the front of your sweater. Probably won't happen with the markers, but if you start painting it will. When you're finished with the outlines, you can use a bigger textile marker to fill in each shape so you now have a clear image of where the paint should be. Now the painting front starts. Before you start, make sure that you have something between the surface you're painting on and the sweater to avoid stains. I simply reuse an old garbage bag and I stick it to my dining table with some painter's tape. I always do this when I start painting. Again, make sure that you have a piece of cardboard inside the sweater so the ink won't bleed through. There's nothing much to say about the painting process honestly. I basically just put some paint on another piece of cardboard that I use as a palette, and then I just use 2 brushes to paint over my markers. I use a big brush for bigger parts and a smaller one for details and thin lines. To ensure starting with a thin line with a brush, gently use a brush tip at the beginning of the line and start pushing down to use the full brush when you're in the middle. As you're approaching the end of your line, slowly start lifting the brush back up. That's pretty much it for the painting. You might want to let your design dry for a while and paint a second layer over it if you can still see some of the fabric. Feel free to do a 3rd or 4th coat of paint. I usually just do 3. When you're finished, check the paint bottle to see how to attach the paint to the garment. In my case, I just have to put a piece of baking paper over the paint and then iron it down for a few minutes. Now for the embroidery part. If you don't know how to use a thread and needle, I suggest you check out a tutorial on YouTube. In my case, I was fortunate enough to learn it from my grandma. She really enjoyed teaching me something she was good at and it was useful skill to me, and on top of that we had a great time. It might be worth it to let a family member teach you this over a YouTube tutorial, as learning this embroidery is a valuable memory to me and my grandma. Anyways, the crew neck is a bit punk inspired and I decided to not do the embroidery as neat as possible and just wing it. This makes it easier for me and it works with the aesthetic. First I checked where I wanted the patch to be, and I decided to put them on my sleeves. I just used pins to attach them so I could test if I was happy with the position. When I was happy with it, I just grabbed a small embroidery loop. I was fortunate enough to have a smaller one that I got from my grandma because my normal one wouldn't fit into the sleeve. Thanks, grandma. I used a white thread over a black one because then you can actually see where it's stitched. Because instead of actual patches, these are just pieces of fabric and they're starting to fray, so I can just start stitching a little bit further away from the edge. I'm sure that I need to put something on top of it to stop it from fraying further in the future, but if you're using a patch, you're probably fine. Here I try to show you how easy it is to get my thread through the needle again, and I suggest you learn this if you don't know it already. Basically I just stitched the patch onto the sleeve, and when the loop was in the way I just simply moved it. I made sure I started with thread long enough to attach the whole patch in one go. I made a knot at the beginning to make sure that the thread wouldn't go through the fabric at the beginning. At the end of the thread I just looped the excess thread into a few hoops where I started, and then I cut away the excess thread and went on with the next one. Well, this is the end result and I'm super happy with it. It definitely gave my old sweater some new life, so I don't have to sell it or throw it away or something. I just can wear it again. Well guys, there you have it, a custom crew neck made by me. I will probably do more content like this in the future, so if you dig it, please leave a like and a comment. It would really mean a lot to me. Also share it with your friends if you have people who might be interested in DIY streetwear. If you want to get the project files for these, and with project files I mean the 3D render, the Cinema 4D file, the PNG of the image that you want if you want to paint it on the back. All of those things you can get it if you become a Patreon. If you become a Patreon of mine, you'll not only get the project files for this video, but all of the project files from all of my tutorials, which include a ton of graphic design, motion design tutorials. Besides that, you'll get a 15% discount in my Asset Web store, as well as a cool Discord rule. If you go one tier up, you'll get access to all of my project files from the Starting a Clothing Brand series, as well as full access to all of the episodes of that series. And you'll also get to ask for personal feedback if you're starting a streetwear brand yourself. So yeah, if this is something you're interested in, there's a link in the description to my Patreon. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments, or you can join us on Discord. And with all of that being said, I want to thank you for watching. This was Tom from Dreadlabs tuning out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.